So when it comes to most films in cinema these days, what we normally see on screen is the theatrical cut, where the final product may be in fact different to what the movie's director originally envisioned. And today I want to dive into that with the question, are director's cuts a good thing or a bad thing? Let's take a look. So what is a director's cut? Well, according to the seething abomination that is the internet, the director's cut is defined as, and I quote, a version of a film that reflects the director's original intentions released after the first studio version. Now, in the past few years, director's cuts have actually become very prominent in cinema, with some causing more debate than others. So let's take a look at where the first director's cut actually came from. So the first ever director's cut on record is the 1925 silent movie The Gold Rush, directed by cinema legend himself, Charlie Chaplin, who in 1942 re-edited and re-released the movie, featuring voiceover narration, a completely new musical score, and a few scenes were altogether cut. In the years to come, many films would have director's cuts, with many of them being huge films that are important to cinema today. Now, when it comes to film today, it's more than likely that the cinematic release will have cut some scenes from it. And while, yes, they may have been shot and edited together, with some possible VFX completed, it's deleted from the final cut of the movie for a number of reasons. Maybe it slows down the plot, or it's totally inconsistent with the rest of the movie. A good example of this would be the small indie film The Avengers, released in 2012, where we actually see a sequence of Steve Rogers adjusting to modern society. In the film, this was cut in favour of seeing Cap in the gym after hours, hitting a punch bag in the gym, of course. The best idea I have for this being removed from the movie is that it just slowed down the plot and perhaps wasn't needed in the final cut altogether. Now, in the world that is cinema, of course, there are many films out there that have a different cut of a movie that reflects what the original director perhaps set out to do, and some of these include The Exorcist, the director's cut released in 2000 that featured updated visual effects and one of the movie's most well-known scenes, otherwise known as the spider crawl. James Cameron's Aliens from 1986, there was 70 minutes worth of footage that gives emotional depth to Ellen Ripley, delves into the background of the colony, and expands upon the persistent sense of tension and gut-wrenching dread throughout this variation of the movie. A recent cut, in fact, was Rocky IV, edited by none other than Sylvester Stallone himself. This cut of the movie features scenes that expand upon the inner motivations of Apollo Creed and Ivan Drago, along with cutting scenes that weren't needed, like the robot butler at Paulie's birthday party. And last but not least, we have Terminator 2. In 2017, James Cameron returned to his 1992 masterpiece and touches up some visual effects and restores the cameo of Michael Biehn, who of course played Kyle Reese in the first movie. Now, this is an interesting one because while this is completely separate from the documentary released in 1970 that won an Oscar, it uses the same footage from that and includes more of it, so I guess you could count it as a new cut of the movie. So in 2021, Lord of the Rings director Peter Jackson released a docuseries titled The Beatles Get Back, which, like its predecessor Let It Be, as mentioned released in 1970, follows the Fab Four on the making of their last album together. The series includes them working on the album as well as their final performance together on the Apple Records rooftop. The series was created with cooperation from the widows of John and George along with Giles Martin and of course the last two remaining Beatles themselves, Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr respectively. Now, I couldn't talk about director's cuts without mentioning all of this drama, so brace yourselves, this is going to be pretty extensive. So, during the post-production of Justice League, Zack Snyder was forced to step back due to a family tragedy, and the studio, instead of doing the smart thing and delaying the film, instead hired Avengers director Joss Whedon to restructure the movie, since by this point, the execs were nervous that this movie wouldn't do well, and would probably have the same reception as Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad. However, the movie that was released in theatres was god-awful, and it caused a lot of uproar, which started the trend of release the Snyder Cut. In May of 2020, however, Zack Snyder was hosting a watch-along of Man of Steel, since most of us were in quarantine by this point, when Superman himself Henry Cavill dropped in to crash their little watch party. His words, not mine. Eventually, someone actually asked Zack when and if we'd see a cut of Justice League true to his vision of the movie, and that wish actually came true. Zack revealed that his cut of Justice League would be releasing on HBO Max, which caused the fanbase to cheer and hold hands in unison. This cut restores Snyder's true plan for Justice League and its characters. This film is also integral to Snyder's overall plan, which I will be breaking down in another video. Another case of DC not knowing what to do was 2016's Suicide Squad, where I like to use the expression, they royally fucked up, because by God this movie is hard to watch. However, this is also down to studio interference because the execs at DC at the time only gave David Ayer, the film's director, 6 weeks to write the script. That's right, 6 weeks to write the script for a 2-hour movie. Seriously, they gave him that amount of time to write the film, and the average script for a film normally takes upwards of potential months to write, and in that time the movie may have to go through multiple drafts as well. Anyway, there is supposedly a cut of David Ayer's Suicide Squad that isn't actually terrible, and Ayer confirmed this himself, saying that all it requires is some visual effects work. However, I think we're unlikely to see David Ayer's original vision due to the change in leadership at DC, with James Gunn and Peter Safran now currently running things. So, with a rough explanation, are director's cuts a good thing? Well, that's a little bit of a mixed bag, because for one thing, it does feel liberating to see the original vision that the director had. Some movements have actually led to a lot of uproar and backlash. For example, after the Snyder Cut release in 2021, another hashtag began trending called #RestoreTheSnyderverse, and this led to not only a lot of toxicity in the DC fandom, but after Henry Cavill announced his departure as Superman at the end of last year, these toxic fans began targeting James Gunn and Peter Safran, for some calling for the duo to be removed as the new leaders of DC Studios. Look, I get why people want to see Snyder's full plan for the DCEU, and I'm sure that one day we could see it happen if the rumours of that corner being bought by Netflix are in fact true. Not sure if they are though. But the simple fact of the matter is, we shouldn't really be blaming James Gunn and Peter Safran for the death of the Snyderverse. That's mainly down to the old management at Warner Bros, including Walter Hamada, who as far as I know is one of the people responsible for what went down at WB before the big merger with Discovery. Now, in my honest opinion, while I do think director's cuts are becoming more of a trend, especially within the past 5 years, I don't think we need to see more of them arise, because some of them could cause a lot of problems and toxicity within the fan bases of those movies. So that concludes this video, and if you enjoyed it, then be sure to like and subscribe, and if you happen to have some time on your hands, then go and check out my podcast The Movie Geeks with my good friend Brandon Prime, where we talk about films, TV and everything in between. So thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.